All right, and welcome everybody to the IU Hoops halftime report. I'm Jared Morris here to talk about that first half between Indiana and Illinois. Wait a second here. Okay. Kind of a rough start for Indiana. I thought, especially the first 2 or 3 minutes, I wrote in my notes, it kind of looked like Indiana's legs and feet were stuck in the mud a little bit. Feet stuck in the mud, playing defense with legs straight. Illinois really took advantage, jumped out to that 9-6 lead at the under 4-minute timeout. It definitely wasn't the kind of Indiana defense that we had been seeing, that we'd been used to seeing. But then Indiana really turned up the defense, and we started to see, why this team has been, shoot the third most efficient defense over the last 10 games. It was 14-12, and Indiana goes on a 14-0 run, held Illinois scoreless for about 7 minutes. It was really nice to see the freshmen keying the beginning of that run. Justin Smith and Al Durham had 7 points. They actually scored, I think it was 9 of Indiana's first 13 points, something like that. I might have that stat wrong, but they scored a decent amount of Indiana's points early on, which was really nice to see. Justin had a couple of really nice drives where he went from outside the 3-point lane and got inside and finished, even got fouled on one of them. And seeing Al Durham both knock down a three and then finish on that transition play was really nice as well. But I thought, as he has done all year, I really thought Juwan Morgan keyed everything that Indiana was doing in the first half. I thought the guards especially struggled on defense in the beginning of the game, but I thought Juwan was kind of the one guy battling. And then I think eventually everybody kind of caught up to him. And actually, there were a couple plays there late in the first half that I just thought were so indicative of how important Juwan Morgan is to this team. Indiana's up 28-20, and you'll remember back at the first game against Illinois up in Champaign, Indiana had played pretty well through the first 15, 16 minutes of the first half, and then really finished poorly in the first half and let Illinois get back into the game. And it's almost like Juwan Morgan was just going to single-handedly not let that happen because, Indiana came out of the under 4-minute timeout. It was 28-20, I believe was the score. Yeah, 28-20. And I believe on the first possession, Colin Hartman jacks a three, and Juwan just leaps up and gets this one-handed rebound that was fantastic. Ended up getting it out. The ball ended up going around to Newkirk. He scored. Then, maybe it was 2 possessions later, Illinois is going back in transition. Morgan hustles to get back, then makes that block without fouling. The ball quickly goes up the floor for a layup. And so it's 32-20, and though Juwan hadn't scored the points, his hustle to get the offensive rebound and then his great play, his hustle, and then his smart block created the points on the other end. So it was 2 huge plays, pushed Indiana's lead right back out to 12. And although Illinois was able to cut it to 10, I thought that sequence was really important there for Indiana to be able to keep their lead. So Juwan, in a season of them, had another really strong half. I know he only scored 5 points, and struggled to make some shots, but had 8 rebounds, 3 of them offensive, had 4 blocked shots, a steal, and was just, I thought, really keyed Indiana's energy. And so I thought that was really nice to see. Robert Johnson in particular, I thought really started slow. He looked really bad to me defensively early, but he picked it up and got going. He played all 19 minutes or all, 19 out of 20 minutes. It just kind of took him a little while to get going. But Trent Frazier, who was the guy who kind of keyed Illinois' run in the first half in the first game up in Champaign, he only went 3 for 11, was 0 for 6 from downtown. Robert spent a decent amount of time guarding him. Problem for Robert is that he has 4 turnovers. And so while he's leading Indiana in points with 9 and does have a couple of assists, he's been real tentative on some plays. And he traveled on one. He had an offensive foul on another. So, Robert is not a good ball handler. It is one of his biggest weaknesses as a player, especially for a guard and a guard on this team who has to handle the ball a lot. So this matchup against Illinois is a particularly troublesome one for him. But I think he's really got to cut down on the turnovers, because if you cut down on some of those, you reduce Illinois' chances to get some of those transition buckets and get some of those easy looks, which is obviously what you want to do. Devontae Green has obviously been playing very well leading in to tonight. He was okay. He was pretty bad early on, and he got taken out early, had to sit down, made some better plays, but I think we're seeing a little bit more of swing for the fences Devontae creep in here in the first half. He's tried to make a few home run plays, and you don't want to totally take that out of his game, but my guess is Archie would like him to go for a few more singles and doubles, here in the second half. And he was really the one guard who stepped up and played well against Illinois in that first game. I think to the guards' credit, while they struggled out of the gates, they all kind of came around because, like I said, Robert, despite his turnovers, was pretty good in the first half and was 4 for 5. So he was making shots. Al had that little stretch, where he had 5 points, didn't have a turnover. I thought he played good defense when he was in there. Even Josh Newkirk showing a bit of a pulse. He had an just absolutely awful turnover, but has 4 points and 2 assists in 7 minutes. And, has had a couple of nice drives to the basket. And so I think he's done a nice job. And so it's been good to see the guards, after a slow start, really pick it up and get going. Indiana's assist rate in this game, only 53.3. And we've been tracking that assist rate number, and it's been up in the 60s and even as high as the 70s since Devontae Green took over in the lineup. This is a tough matchup against Illinois. As Archie said on the pregame, they're a team that does not want to let you run your offense and do your stuff. And so we're seeing Indiana have to go a little bit more one-on-one. I mentioned the drives by Justin Smith, the drive by Josh Newkirk. Robert Johnson's had a couple of drives. So Indiana is breaking the pressure, and they're able to get some layups doing that, but it's a little bit more off the dribble and not as much off the pass, which I know is more what Archie wants. And so it's going to be interesting to see how Indiana deals with that here in the second half, because you see Indiana trying to make some of those backdoor passes almost to the point where I feel like they've forced a couple of them. And so that has led to the turnover rate being at 24.2. But, that's what Illinois does to you. And so that number is going to be inflated in this game, but hopefully Indiana can dial it back, not turn it over 8 times in the second half. And obviously a big key to that will be Robert Johnson cutting down on his turnovers. So it was impressive to see Indiana, after what Illinois did offensively, kind of running that same action where they were just sending cutters straight to the basket, setting little back screens in the middle of the lane for them. Indiana really shored that up, really played much better defense, and held Illinois to just 0.73 points per possession. Started to clean up the offensive glass a little bit more. Illinois finished with 7 offensive rebounds, but they had 5 of them before the under 16-minute timeout. So Indiana cleaned that up. The key here, as it has been, or as it was against Rutgers, as it was against Minnesota, is come out early, start the second half well, and just don't give your opponent any life. I think if Indiana can do that, they should be able to breeze to another victory here in the second half. But if they give Illinois some life, a team that beat them earlier this season, then this game could be a dogfight. And Illinois has the kind of defense, if they can force some turnovers, they can make up ground quickly if they can get some transition baskets. And so I think Indiana really has to come out and play with much better purpose, much better togetherness, much better effort to start the second half than they did the first half. And if they do that, I think Indiana is the better team, and obviously being at home will help, and they have by far the best player on the floor in Juwan Morgan. That should be enough to carry Indiana to a 15 to 20-point victory, but just got to go out and do it. Don't get complacent. And if they do that, then we should have a nice, joyous post-game show to talk with you all about. So I appreciate y'all being here with me on the Halftime Report. Andy and Ryan will both be with me for the post-game show. So join us at assemblycall.com or right on our YouTube channel, and we will talk to you after the game. And, yeah, enjoy the second half. We'll talk to you then.